We are live. This is Agrod. You are listening to MSP Waves. We are an interactive broadcast studio coming to you live from the Peace, Abundance, and Liberty Network Discord channel. Today is March the 6th. It is noon Eastern, and we're here today to give a recap on events of the past week. And honestly, I'm going to try to go sum up a whole bunch of these things to sort of give a long term or like try to put as much of this stuff into perspective. I'm going to do my best to not spin a narrative. I'm going to do my best to try to put in various perspectives here. I have a strong narrative that I believe, but for the purpose of this, I want to try to respect that different groups have different perspectives here. So here's the thing. Some of you heard some of this recap before. I'm sorry to share it again. But when Steem started, Dan Larimer, Dan Notestein, who is the guy known as Block Trades, and Ned Scott had a company called Steemit, and they developed this blockchain, which they took a whole lot of influence from BitShares. BitShares is an exchange, and there wasn't really much exchange pairing built into Steem, but the way that they manage the database, how we can all have public keys and access this thing, was largely based off of BitShares. So they took it over here, and they announced it on Bitcoin Talk, and they said, "All right, guys, we're going to go launch this thing. We are going to mine." And we're not, and they were even pretty open. We're not even going to really help you guys mine. There's minimal documentation about it. And we're doing that purposely because we'd like to go gather a large stake. And we're going to use that stake to be non voting, to onboard users, and to develop the Steem ecosystem. Um, so they mined a whole bunch. At one point, I think they had between 80 and 90%. And they stopped mining. Other groups were able to mine, so other people partook in what's known as the ninja mine. And then during that time, some people were getting rewards for posting and witness rewards. The inflation on the chain was insane. It was so fast that it was plummeting the price. Account values, I think, were staying pretty roughly similar, but the individual price of the token was plummeting, and it went from something like $5 all the way down to 7 cents. And at some point, they said, and this is a couple months after I started. Now, they said, "All right, this inflation isn't working. We're going to stop it." And so they cut off the inflation there, and all throughout this time, they've been making claims. In two posts ago on my wall, groups of mostly it was information war went out and got like a really nicely detailed list of links that contain references to them saying the stake will be non-voting. We're going to use it to onboard users, and it's going to be onboard users, and it will be to develop the ecosystem. So in other places, they have denied that those claims, um, but there's at least I would say 30 references to them saying this is how it's going to be used. And you can fast forward a couple years. For the most part, I would argue that they did actually use it for that purpose. I would say that they were not terribly effective at using it for that purpose, but that is the purpose that they used it for. So for the vast majority of the time, I would not say that there was malfeasance so much as I would say there was mismanagement, and and I I would think that that changed on February 14th when the stake transferred um, from. Uh, Actually, the stake didn't even really transfer. The keys to the account transferred from Ned to Justin. Um, and Ned took payment for that and he left. In some perspective, he has done what's known as an exit scam, where he made promises and then bailed with cash and will not fulfill those promises. In a different perspective, he never made those promises, or those promises were never binding, and it was his rightful property all along and can leave with it. And that is one of the key central parts of this entire boondoggle or discussion or whatever you want to call it. It's, is that stake truly committed to be non-voting, to develop the ecosystem and onboard users? Is it only a social contract? Is there no social contract? Is it legally binding? Does legally binding mean anything in crypto? Those are sort of the central questions around everything that's happened. So when they transferred that stake, the witnesses are universally in agreement that that stake is not, it is encumbered by those promises that we think are binding. And maybe they are legally binding, maybe they are not. That would have to be decided in a court of law way down the road. If things escalate to that point and people can't come to voluntary decisions that 4 years of promises are worth keeping in this space. So hopefully, I do think that Tron actually took a look into the 4 years of promises and have made some statements that appear to me to acknowledge that that there is an encumbrance on that stake. And again, whether Tron's answers and just mentioning, yes, it seems that way, or implying it seems that way, I don't know if that's legally binding. Like that, how enforceable is that is really a key question in all of this. When we started, so the announcement was a surprise announcement, and when that happened, the witnesses tried to get in contact with Roy and with Justin, and we launched. We tried to initiate communication, and nothing was happening. And so we wanted to have a temporary freeze, largely because we think, I can't speak for everybody, but at least when I put that in, I thought, hey, I don't think Ned was honest with these people. I think that this stake is encumbered, and I don't think they have a clue, and they're not currently talking to us. So when I enacted 22.2, I did it as a way to stop, inform them, and try to correct that situation. We had questions amongst ourselves of what would it take for us to release that. Ultimately, we never had to choose for ourselves. They were the ones that overrode that decision. But when I had asked myself, I thought, as soon as I can get an answer that they don't have to adopt that they know the stake is encumbered, but they at least have to be informed that that the witnesses that were running 22.2 universally believe that the stake was encumbered by the 4 years of promises. And those 4 years of promises came from Steem Inc. We don't think that it was just Ned or just Dan or just the shareholders. We think it was really Steem Inc. And so imagine that you have a house and the house has liens against it. If you sell the house, the liens don't go away. The liens are still attached to the house. So we believe that the stake is still encumbered by promises. And so you'll notice about 22.2, like Justin's son had an account and we knew his account, and but there was never any restrictions placed on Justin, because this isn't about whether a person or an individual can transfer funds. This is really about can that stake be encumbered, and can witnesses enforce the encumbrance of the 4 years of promises? And then a further question of, are those 4 years of promises binding, socially binding, contractually binding, legally binding? There's a lot of questions that don't have precise answers. And again, all of those answers are best answered by voluntary decisions to come to mutual agreement. Um, okay, so I the um, Tron and exchanges seem to be of the opinion that, at least initially, that there were no social promises on this stake. They had heard nothing about it, or I don't know if they've heard nothing about it, but the statements by Justin are, "This is my personal property and I can do whatever I want with it," or something to that effect, indicate to me that there wasn't real awareness of, that the stake itself had 4 years of promises. And so the reaction was, seemed like, when looking at us, would presume that to be, what the hell are these people doing? This came out of left field. They're taking and seizing and holding my stake. This is an outrage and crazy, and immediately escalated by, colluding with exchanges. The exchanges were convinced to go power up Steem, which was not their Steem, but it was public Steem. It was literally, if you're listening to this and you store Steem on exchanges, they used your Steem to overturn governance on this chain. And so they locked it up and they powered up the vote, and they voted with that custodial stake to go vote in 20 what have been deemed sock puppet witnesses. So there's 20 sock puppets that are out there. And at first there were 20 witnesses. This group, the people here in this chat, immediately started reacting with outrage on Twitter and communicating with the rest of the social sphere about how outrageous this act is, how we don't want our governance to be occupied by sock puppets. How offensive is that? And we communicated that over and over. And within 12 hours, I think it was 12 hours, both Huobi and Binance removed their votes, but they have not yet initiated power downs. So they are still poised to vote again. But they also have the stake of all the users locked up. So there's a bit of a deadlock here. And in terms of the witnesses, the what I consider the de jure actual elected governance of this chain holds something like 11 of the 20 witness spots, and these sock puppets own 9 of those spots. And there's a precarious balance here that is not allowing either party to take complete control of this chain. And some of that is really being enforced through what is known as proxy token, which is partially voting for Steem witnesses and partially voting for the sock puppet witnesses. And this is presumably here to force compromises that both teams can figure out peaceful resolution with. Okay, so now where are we at? The leaked audio of the calls is strongly stating, I think somebody did a count and it was like Roy stated at least 30 times that what the exchanges want is to get out as fast as humanly possible. And the witnesses, and they want us to hard fork to let them do that. And the witnesses are basically saying no. Like, first off, in order for us to go hard fork, not soft fork you can sort of, like, in a rush under emergency circumstances, you can probably get soft forks done in about a week. But hard forks you can't, because we have to go work with all of the various exchanges to notify them and sort of bring them on board. But that's after we've coded it and after we have exhaustively tested it. So it would take us like weeks and or a month just to go figure out how we could do that. and like actually get code that's prepared, and then it would take us another month to give notice to the other exchanges so that we're fair to them. And so it's honestly just faster to power down, and it doesn't threaten the governance on our chain. Giving special treatment to exchanges that have already shown they're willing to abuse customer funds seems like a bad plan to ensure long-term governance. So there was a meeting, and now there's some talks that are happening, and we're trying to figure out a way forward here that can do that. Um, but it's not. The meeting was last night, and it's really only been 4 hours of waking time to go figure that out. Um, so I think the first de-escalation that can happen is between the exchanges, which are dying to get out of this, and with the witnesses and the sort of Steam community as a whole. And I think once that's done, that's a lot easier to go figure out without the intense pressure of screaming exchanges. I think it'll be easier to figure out what are the next steps with Tron. There's what are the next steps. Not only are there questions about legality and contract and what's it mean in a block space, um, but I also think that there's a lot of questions of what do we as a community want to go do, because here's this entity that currently holds 65 million Steem on this blockchain, and I think not all, but the majority of users would say they have acted atrociously since they've been here. Um, so I imagine that some are going to attempt to leave, and I'm willing to bet that happens through a sister fork. And I think some are willing to forgive them. D. Hentz actually put out a Twitter poll and asked the Steam community, um, have they gone too far and would you leave, or are they worth giving a second chance to? And it was really split. It was 60-40. And I don't know how many, like, I don't have the results of who voted, and it's not stake based. So, in some ways, it's an unscientific poll. But, but that at least gives you some indication of just how split this community is, in particular around what the hell to do with these Tron people. Um, so I think a fork of Steem is extremely likely. And the question would then remain, what would happen? Does everybody move to the new fork? Does everybody stay on Steem? Um, you know, do, that is a giant question. Some people say, working with Tron, they have all this ecosystem, they have all this benefit. There could be amazing things that happen here. And then some people say, yeah, but they're terrible stewards, and this is the worst action that could ever happen. And honestly, at this point, I've spent all of my time as a witness doing everything I can to keep this chain together as one entity. But I look at this and I think the divide here is so strong, and the aversion and to Tron and the appeal of Tron is so diametrically opposed that for the first time in my career here, I personally am now thinking that actually having both of these chains is the proper path. On the sister chain, almost certainly the amount of stake in the Steemit wallet will be zeroed. Um, and some people have asked questions about that. I think if on this chain ID we zero Steemit stake, that is theft, and that is totally inappropriate for us to do. If, however, we create a sister fork so that Steem and or Steemit and Steemians who want to stay here and continue working with Steemit, if we create a sister fork that then has a zero balance for Steemit, I don't think that's theft at all. I think that witnesses and people on that community have the right to determine their own consensus in whatever way they want. So we can't modify this one because that on this chain, it's not right to change anybody's balances. But on a new chain, on a new fork, I think it's completely fair game. And maybe you don't, and I respect the people that would say that's theft or piracy or something like that. I don't want to I don't want to take
I,
away. I think that there's some validity to those arguments,
I
but
don't think anybody's argued that, have they? I mean, if it's on a sister fork, they still have all their Steem that they ever bought, so that's still theirs. I don't think that anybody's argued that a sister fork steals anybody's.
there are some people that have said to me that it's inappropriate. Um, I don't agree with them, but I respect
They
how
got
they
to be in
could
the
say that.
minority.
I do think they're in the minority, um, but I also think it's a valid opinion. It would be one that I would disagree with, because I sort of look at it like so there were memes around pirating DVDs and stealing apple pie. If I go steal an apple pie from Ron, the clown had an apple pie and no longer has it. I have stolen something from him. And with the piracy idea, if he has a DVD and I copy that DVD illegally and I move it to my own CD and play it in my own system, I have taken that same content from Ron, but I have not stolen that content. So now it's more like piracy. And then the question is, that's piracy against some content holder. In this case, there's no content holder. It's just people that want to define consensus. And we want to define consensus, or the people that are in that camp want to define consensus as everything we got except no Steam it. And I think it's fair for them to go define consensus on their own chain however they want. If they want to give everybody a pony NFT on their chain, that is their goddamn right to do. And even if they want to airdrop ponies to everybody but Steam it, that's their choice as well. So that's my. So I think a sister fork is really highly likely to happen. Although I can't confirm that it will, but my spidey sense here is tingling pretty strongly, and this is a big enough divide, and Tron is a big enough divider that for the first time in my career here, instead of trying to squash it or shit on it or say bad things about it, I actually am in high support of the other chain forming. And one I do think that there's possible win-win outcomes, at least with the exchanges. That's where we're at now. So maybe that shit will calm down, and then after that, I think we can work with Tron. But I also think that there's a possibility that this shit escalates overnight, um, especially because the exchanges have not powered down. They're in a position to go vote in sock puppets and ram down a hard fork. Um, which, if they do, that is a potential, and they have demonstrated enough crazy behavior that I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, I would be really surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked if it happened. But if they do that, I would be laughing my ass off because they would literally lose the support of everybody in the crypto sphere, everybody in the Steam ecosystem, and we would 100% move to new chain and just move on without all these guys. And maybe we would lose Binance as a trading pair, but my guess would be that would make so much noise that every other exchange would be happy to have our business because everybody in the freaking galaxy would be talking about us. They already sort of are, but this would be some next level. So those are some of the friendly pathways I see out of this. There are some of the crazy pathways. If we navigate this, we have to start figuring out if we have to navigate this, we have to start figuring out how could we actually form a pathway with Steem and Steem it and Tron in such a way that things can be peaceful and exist. And there are some that say, there are a lot that say it's impossible. They are beyond redemption. There are some that say put this stuff into the SPS. There are some who say let's move resources into the foundation and allow self-governance through there. And there are some that just want to see this stake burned. There's a lot of different opinions on this, and especially because there's not even consensus to stay on the same chain. There's certainly not consensus of if we all stay on, or if this chain continues to exist, how should that be resolved? So there's an enormous number of questions, of which there are actually a fair number of valid answers. And you'll forgive me, I'm a PhD chemist, and my brain says we are in a quantum state where all these different possibilities are available to us. And as we navigate this, we will start closing those opportunities down, and we'll see where we actually exist. So if things are navigated well, we could have some nice relationships with exchanges that have offended us and might want to make peace and be friendly, and maybe even have some things to offer. We could make nice with Tron. You'll notice that they did mention in the last call that they are willing to make a donation. So would that be to the SPS? Would that be to the foundation? I don't know, but that's a big question. And I think one of the main questions that we really need to answer is, I personally really don't trust the Tron team for governance. I do trust them for like business development, and I do trust them to sort of like do some shit with exchanges and really just help get this coin price up. But nothing that I've seen really demonstrates maturity of peaceful resolution in governance. So I think if there's a way that we can quarantine their impact on governance and maximize their impact on business development, then for the people that choose to stay on this chain, that could be an effective combination. And for the people that hate their face and refuse to acknowledge them, and don't have a lot of stake or are willing to just drop and walk away from this stake, or just walk away from Steem as long as they're there, I think those people will form on a sister fork. And the informal poll said 60% of people are looking to stay and 40% are looking to leave.
Well, it was more about like, so I posted the link to that tweet. And the tweet didn't address who was going to stay and who's going to leave. It says if Tron removes their sock puppet witnesses, retracts false statements versus the community elected witnesses, and stops messing with our decentralized governments, would you be willing to forgive them and accept them back into the Steem community? It wasn't a for fork or a wafer fork. It was, are you willing to forgive and forget if some concessions are made?
Right. And 40% of the people said no. So what do you think those 40% are going to do?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. So, if this blockchain cannot handle bad actors, then there's something wrong with the blockchain. That's been my firm belief since day one. If you cannot build a trustless system, then you need to work on filling in the holes that cause trust. That have trust issues. You need, if there's a hole in DPoS, we need to fix that hole, like you said the other day. I do think that so. Ned came on to another Discord the other night and was talking over on the Steem chat Discord, and besides the usual, we never made any promise to you with that stake talk. There was a few different gems in there, and one of the things that he how Roy in the meeting with the witnesses was really nailing home the point that he really wanted the exchanges to be able to power down. Well, in the same vein, Ned was really nailing the point. We need to give them veto rights. We need to give them veto rights. And what he means by veto rights is we give Steem It Inc. account special privileges to be able to veto hard forks. And I mean, this is just preposterous to me. I can't even begin to tell you how many problems there are with that, and we can discuss that. But yeah, like I got to say, like this thing, I think this is something that he's pushing for Justin to get passed through. And I also want to add, we got there's 11 out of 20 of the original witnesses back in the top 20. And yeah, that's that's exactly right, Inertia. They can veto if they get 4 witnesses, and that's going to actually bring me to my next point. But I got to say, guys, there is a very real, like, from what I'm hearing from Ned, from what I'm hearing from witnesses, I guess Roy even slipped up and said that they were in that talk that they are working on a hard fork. They are so they're working on a hard fork right now. We don't know what's in it, but I got to say I'm almost positive they're just going to use the stake that hasn't been voted yet to go ahead and vote and pass it through. I'm afraid that's going to happen. I think that they're buying time. These meetings have been non-productive, and I think they've been non-productive for a reason. I think it's a time waster. I think that they're trying to push something through, and I don't know. Don't be afraid. Don't be surprised.
I will laugh my ass off if they do it.
That right there.
That
yeah,
would be
I mean, here's the thing:
the greatest launch pad that the sister forkers could ever want is exactly that. If they
then it won't be a 60-40 split.
No, it'll be 100-0. I don't know who would actually stick around if they go push down a hard fork down our throats using sock puppet witnesses and incompetent people that don't have any experience with Steem. First off, I'm pretty confident they would just crash Steem. I don't think that hard fork would go through. Secondly, none of our witnesses would be willing to like test it or review it. There's no test code. If they're doing that against our will, it's a hard no. So they would be completely on their own. I'm extremely confident they would totally fuck that up. If Vandenberg was there and Steve was there and Roadscape was there, you know what? They could do it, and I would trust that they could pull that off. I don't think that they would help. Those witnesses are ride or die, or those coders are ride or die Steemians. So I don't see that happening. And they left already because they would refuse to do that. But if they do it anyways, I would just be laughing my ass off. The amount of press we've gotten just for them voting in witnesses is outrageous. Like, it's phenomenal. They could not have done anything to point more attention to us than what they've done. And if they do this hard fork, it would be the biggest story in crypto. It would be like groundbreaking law happening in real time. And none of it would ultimately matter to anybody here because we would 100% be on a functional sister chain while this thing flounders like crazy. And the entire ecosystem is talking about the new chain. You could not ask for a better launch point than that.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it would be. And I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't want everybody out there to think. I don't want to be fear mongering at all. Just let me get that clear as day. I'm trying to be very careful with this, but I do think it's a real possibility, especially considering how much fear you got to understand from the perspective. Justin just had all of his stake frozen, and I mean, whether it was right or wrong, we're not going to get into. But we could just say that he has a fear now and a distrust of the community-led witnesses, and he might just, that is a perfectly reasonable thing to assume.
This is what I'm excited about, trying to resolve things with the exchanges, because that's a smaller problem, and they're dying to get out, and it's totally okay if they get out. they have stake that's your stake that they powered up, but there's no commitments on that stake to the Steem ecosystem. So if they want to go take their stake back and put it back into the exchange and let everybody use it, we're all in agreement that's exactly what they should be doing, because that they got to get that shit like flowing again. They got to let the exchange pairs work and all that. And people need to know that if they want to withdraw their stake, they can, and there's enough liquid to do it. So I think everybody's aligned on, at least everybody on this side is basically like, hey dudes, get your stake out of here and get it working on your exchanges. Because we want those exchanges working. So that to me should be an easier problem to solve than what the hell to go do with Justin and Tron. And you know, honestly, it's because there's just so many different opinions because their actions are so extreme. You know, how do you trust these guys? I mean, to me, the best case scenario is to get them doing things that we would trust them to do, which is develop business relationships and pump the coin. And that's about the only two things I would trust them to do. If it comes to governance, I think they've demonstrated horrible decision making this entire time. They've picked bad people to listen to, and then they've executed bad plans, and they've been negotiating to like have us change all the rules to accommodate all their stupidity. Like basically everything that they've done from a governance standpoint, I think has just been completely off. But that said, these guys pick up a phone and they convince exchanges to take extremely outrageous actions. Like there's power there. There's like an ability there. So you know, maybe there's a way that we can do it. And there's as soon as I say that, there's going to be a million people that say they're not trustworthy. You can't do that. It's gonna fail. We should just do our own thing. To hell with them. Let's move on. And for the first time in my career, I have no defense. My only defense is this is my home, and as long as I'm running a Steem witness, it is my fiduciary responsibility to ensure that the Steem blockchain continues to run. And other people say, screw that, let's just all move to New Fork or new Steem or whatever they end up calling it. And I don't know. Like maybe I will end up doing that, but my current approach is go home, Tron. You're drunk. This is my home, and I support having a second home. If somebody wants to go make forks, I've used this quote a couple times, but it was Smooth that taught me no great project has ever died because of a fork, and he means that by like a sister fork. So just because there's a sister fork here doesn't mean that our entire ecosystem is dead. It's actually proof of concept that this is a valuable project that people would want to work on. So that's sort of my summary. You know, there's still a lot of questions out there. You know, the progress has not been as fast as what everybody would like, but this is a gigantic clusterfuck of enormous proportions, and unfucking it has been extremely challenging, especially because we're a decentralized community and they're a corporate entity. You know, it's not really set up for 20 people to have different opinions and try to get them all across. You hear that in the witness chats where some people are just going off on their own damn project or mind or hope that is not what is in sort of consensus, but that's part of this weird ass process. So I mean, it's difficult to go tell a bunch of raging anarchists, hey, we're all going to do this, because if they're in consensus and they don't agree, then it is sort of their right to go handle it however they want, bearing in mind that there could be in consequences that they get voted out of consensus. So I don't know. So Marty. They kept calling the Marky Mark Marty on the call, and so Marty kept calling him Rob. I thought that was at least a little funny.
I still got to find some time to get to watch that. It's been a crazy couple of days. I don't know.
No, hey, El Gecko, the answer here is absolutely what I want is peaceful, voluntary de-escalation with mutual good paths going forward. That is bar none the best. But with that in mind, it's entirely possible that they shove this hard fork down our throat, revote, and do whatever the hell they want. I'm not advocating that. Oh God, that's going to be a giant cluster. But at least the one thing that I like about that is that at least it would unite everybody in this entire ecosystem to go move on to new chain, which would actually satisfy my actual biggest desire that we all stay together as a community. But that would, like, I'm not going to sit here and provoke that because I do think that it causes harm. And what I really want is just for the drunk people to stop causing harm. I'm not trying to go create new harm. So I would be laughing. I think it would be terrible. Maybe that's just my dark sense of humor. Okay, so
So there's a good hypothetical in the chat. If there was 17 witnesses that got in the top again of the community witnesses, would there be an action to stop exchanges from voting?
we have 11 now. We could do it now. A soft fork doesn't require a supermajority. You just need a majority, and it's possible. But there's enough witnesses that are in that 10 that are against doing that it hasn't happened. It's potential that people do that. That's part of this voting mechanism. I'm personally against doing that. I want the effect. I want them to stop voting, but I want them to do it voluntarily. And if we start screwing with exchanges, then aren't we just as bad as the people that we're aligned against? Or at least I don't know that we're aligned against them. I mean, I want to cause pain for the exchanges enough so that they are screaming to get out of here, but not so much pain that we stop working together. Because Binance, despite having been giant dicks and changing our governance and overriding our governance, is still our number one exchange. And so, here too is a potential place of conflict where somebody says their actions are so extreme, I want nothing to do with them. My answer is a little bit more practical of, I think they were fed bad information by a certain someone who's a total douchebag. And they acted in a paranoid and hostile way to what was meant to be a relatively calm response. They took it as a giant affront and offensive, and responded accordingly. I think a lot of this is misunderstanding, and I think a lot of it can be attributed to one single douchebag who at the moment will remain unnamed.
I would like to add, you said Binance was the biggest exchange right now for Steem, but please stop using them. Stop using them. Go support the exchanges. The new ones that came up, do your due diligence. Make sure that they're to be trusted. I don't know about VCC that's posted in here. It's great that they're accepting Steem. Go support Bittrex if you can, if that's available in your area. Go support several of these exchanges as come on the side of the Steem community. Vow to never use stake to vote. Use customer custodial funds to vote on governance. So, go support them. Go do your due diligence. I'm not saying to blindly support them because that's always a bad thing to do. But definitely go look into them and look into getting your funds off Binance, Poloniex, and Huobi.
Yeah, you could also use Steam Engine. Sorry for my selfish plug, but that is a decentralized exchange, so that's an option. Our volume is low, but I don't think it'll stay that way forever. Okay, I think that's a pretty good summary. What does the community need to do going forward As long as they're not powering down, and as long as they're still in a position to be hostile, and as long as they're still taking over our governance, we need to keep making noise on Twitter. Um, that's where all these people are interacting. You should tell everybody it's day 4. They need to stand down, power down, release customer funds. Um, I think there's a lot that you can do. To me, this is the motto of this group is do no harm but take no shit, and this is take no shit mode. But I think we lose the moral high ground if everything is fuck you, fuck that. Like if we basically take the Bernie Sanders approach and just burn everything down while complaining, I don't think that is our best defense as a community. I think we have to be firm, and I think we have to be very clear in what precise actions they have done that are totally inappropriate, and we should hold them accountable. So for one example, Hoiby is holding a Ask Me Anything, and their VP, believe it or not, is named Ciara Sun. I'm willing to bet that is a relative of Justin Sun. Maybe not, and I might be wrong, but that is my bet. And so we should go talk to Miss Sun during her AMA and spam them with as many questions as we can around why is Hoiby still powered up? Why aren't you powering down? Why did you use custodial funds to vote for governance on this chain? And she's Ciara Hoiby, and we should be asking a lot of questions of her right now. And you can do it without, sexual derogatory comments. You don't need to call her a bitch or a cunt or anything like that. Try to keep this professional. Just ask her straightforward, tough questions about horrific and idiotic decisions that those exchanges have made. And you can do the same thing with CZ. His Steem is still powered up. I've been using the hashtag Where's my Steem, and I think it's fair to ask them Where's my Steem, dude, because they have, like Binance in particular. There's some screenshots of their support people lying about the blockchain's congested. We can't give you back your Steem. It's like, no, homie, your decision makers staked it for 91 days, and now they can't get it back if people want to withdraw it. So hold those exchanges accountable. Hold Poloniex, Hoiby, and Binance accountable. But let's do it professionally, because if this chain survives, and if this group is here, and if we keep moving forward, we're going to want the exchanges to interact with us. We're going to want the exchanges to talk to us. We're going to want them to list our coins. I mean, maybe some people don't give a shit, but I certainly want those things. What I want is for them to go home, keep providing services, and stop holding my blockchain hostage. And maybe they can do some nice shit for us on the way, since they came into our China shop like a bull and broke everything.
Do you think that there's a way? I mean, because here's the thing. Like, people are like, no, we can't let them get off scot-free, the exchanges. We can't let them get off scot-free. We can't let them instant power down. I don't think they've gotten off scot-free. I've said that before, but I'll say it again. I don't think, they have been, they've had a tweet storm fired at them. They've had a lot of public relations disaster to deal with. And I think that the pressure should keep on going. I think you should remove your funds if you can, if they're available. And I think you should move to other exchanges that are more friendly to Steem.
I would even consider a boycott.
Is there
boycott
them.
If this,
is there a path forward to allowing them to power down? I mean, here's the thing. This could be a win-win.
The path forward is just powering down. I know they want it to be faster, but if they want us to go hard fork shit, it's not going to be like a one day thing. It's going to take us 2 months anyways. 1 month to go figure it out, and 1 month to actually give notice to the other exchanges, which is that's our policy as a group. You give exchanges 30 days notice. Those 2 exchanges or those 3 exchanges are not our only ones. Like we have a fiduciary responsibility to Bittrex and any other exchange that lists us to go give them at least 30 days notice of proposed changes so that they can review those changes and ask questions and prepare. So like doing this in a way that changes our blockchain leaves us exposed to the same problem, but actually makes it easier for them to reoffend while harming exchanges that didn't. And also taking 2 months to do it while we don't have our lead developers is kind of a dumb plan. So the plan that's afforded to them is simply power down.
Well, here's the thing: like, if a soft fork can freeze certain accounts, can't a soft fork allow for certain accounts to have other operations?
Well, what it does when we soft fork, it means that we can refuse to accept transactions, but we can't change transactions that they've done. So in this
Okay.
case, in this case, what we can do is if we, sorry, the got me distracted. Soft fork, we can deny their transactions, but we can't alter them. So if they go ahead and they say, "Hey, I'm going to power down," there's no way for us to end that power down without hard forking. And honestly, what they don't understand is that they are partners in the decisions that move forward from here. If Steem witnesses get all angry and say, "Fuck these guys, how dare they? Their actions are totally inexcusable and we are forking them off. We change the code. Our next step is to go to them and say, please run this code." And my guess, I'm not in their shoes, but my guess is that they turn around and say no. And that leaves us without one of the biggest exchanges. It leaves us running this weird fork. So that I don't think is going to work. I mentioned earlier that it's unethical for us to change balances on this chain, but that the if they start their power down, we can't soft fork the power down out. And if they and we're not like nobody has ever mentioned stop transfers for the exchanges. We want exchange pairs working, right? So why would we stop exchange pairs from being able to transfer? The thing that we want them to do is decline voting rights, and that's an operation that they can do now. And actually, in that operation is a 30-day period where they can reverse it. So if we were to violate the spirit of that agreement and screw with them in the first 30 days, they would have the ability to then claw back the voting rights and then throw us right back into the fiasco that we've been in, almost since the 14th here. But they don't have to do any of that. They just start their power down and walk away. That's it. And we don't run this crazy ass hard fork, because it's against our governance and it's a bad plan. And without our lead devs, it's a pretty dangerous plan. I mean, we've stopped this chain even with Vandy and Steve, like even after testing. Like coding blockchains and making sure that they work and testing every single scenario isn't easy. And now that we're down our best devs, this is a really bad time to try that. So I think the answer is they just start powering down and feel comfortable knowing that we want to continue our exchange relationship with them. Maybe individual users don't, and I fully respect that. Go right ahead. Pull out your coins, not your keys, not your coins. Fully agree with that. But as a witness looking after the entire chain, I'm putting aside some emotional anger about what they've done to ask what's in the best interest of the chain. And I would argue easily and every day, it's in the best interest of Steem to continue to have a Binance pair. And maybe out of the kindness of their heart and recognizing like, oh shit, maybe we blundered, maybe they can voluntarily add some more pairs or something like that as a sorry we wrecked your chain, guys. Here's something nice. it'll give them more business. I think they bought some Steem too, so they might, if they know ahead of time that they're about to go add an exchange pair and now they own Steem, they actually might have an incentive to do that. Um, and it would be great for the chain. So, and it would be good press. They've gotten nothing but bad press out of this. But if they sort of like back down and do something nice for us, and maybe not say sorry because that's rough for corporations to do, but they say, here you go, that sounds like a win-win to me. But I'm not sitting on their exchange side. Maybe they just pull the trigger and uh, pump a hard fork down our throats. That is a full alternative, and maybe this thing just stays a stalemate forever. If it does stay a stalemate, then you can bet your ass this group is going to be doing boycott Binance as loud as we can for as many days as necessary. Um, but here's hoping calmer heads prevail. I think once they really figure out that we're not, there's a certain douchebag that's been advising them. As soon as they realize that we're not a bunch of crazy assholes, we just want our exchange pair to work, and we just want our own governance. We're happy for everything to go back to the way it was. Just go home, put in this decline voting rights, and please think about doing something nice for us, considering how big of a dick you were. I think we could call it quits there. And as as a team play, as individuals, you guys get to make whatever decisions you want. Pull your money out, continue to try to boycott, tell everybody that they're horrible as a company. You guys get to make your own choices. But I think what's best overall for sort of consensus, my guess is that consensus would be keep the pair and let individuals make decisions that they want.
So you're saying go back to where we were at hard fork 22.1?
Yeah, look, I don't think that there's a need for 22.2. Not anymore. People understand, and Tron is very informed. I no longer believe that Tron is uninformed. They might make choices that I don't like, and it might land them in consequences, but they are no longer misinformed. Um, so, um, so yeah.
Well, I want to remind you that we got like 3 minutes left, a little bit less than 3 minutes left. Yeah, Fearless, just let me know too. And then we're going to be coming up with Spotlight on the Artist. Our regular scheduled programming will be coming up. And so I want to remind everybody in the audience that if you want to continue the Steam conversation, go ahead and move over to general chat after the show. There's a great show coming up next, a lot of great artists, a lot of great music. So if you want to stick around, you're more than welcome to. But we will be moving the Steam-centric conversation over to the general chat. Thank you very much for your respect and consideration.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of opportunity here. And, I think there's a potential role for the foundation to somehow broker some of these things. I'm not sure that people trust Steemit anymore, but maybe we could trust that foundation. There are some people that hate that idea and really only want to see things in the SPS. I honor and respect that too. I think that at times you need a body that can make legal contracts. And some people hate fiat just entirely, but especially as we get more businesses or something like that, we're going to want entities that can sort of speak for this chain as a whole, or at least be a maybe even make contracts with entities. And I've worked on that foundation for a year. So I see a role. A lot of the other witnesses think it's stupid, but I see it mostly as an empty vessel that could help people here. But the SBS is an option, and figuring out maybe null is an option. I mean, I think we got to figure out once we've kind of calmed the tits of the exchanges, then we can go figure out what to go do with. Steemit and Tron. So it's a stepwise process, and it's slow progress, but I do think there's progress, and that progress might be overturned any minute. But right now we have 11 witnesses in there, and we haven't enacted a soft fork. We're maintaining kind of a ceasefire here, and here's hoping that Calmer heads make better choices.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we need some calm. I think we need, but we've got 20 seconds left. So I want to thank everybody for being here. We will be doing this again. Are you going to do it tomorrow after Crim?
Yeah, let's do it. What time is Crim show over?
Oh yeah, you're asking me. I shouldn't. I should. I'll
Yeah.
put it in chat.
I,
I'll put it in chat. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time.